This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Nikita, it's Tony.
Tony!
What's up?
Money!
What's up, buddy?
How are you? Been a long time.
I know,
good
man.
To hear your voice.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. Conrad Thompson is with us.
Hey, how's it going, man? How are you?
Hey. Good, Conrad. Good to talk with both of you guys. Can you hear me clear? Is it okay? I got my little earbuds in.
Yes, sir. Sounds
yeah,
great.
You're fine.
Awesome. Well, great to chat with you guys as well. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, Nikita, it's great to talk with you. We're going to talk about Starrcade 86 here. And because we've been going back and looking at Starrcade, actually looking at the entire year of 1986, which was a very, very eventful year for Jim Crockett Promotions and a very, very eventful year for NWA. I know you were obviously a big part of 1986.
Yeah, it brings back a lot of memories. That's for sure.
Nikita, not all the memories were good. And leading up to Starrcade of 86, you were in a program pretty much with Magnum TA, and then the accident happened. First of all, I want to, before we talk about that, talk about 1986, what it meant to you in your career.
Well, and again, for me personally, a very pivotal time in my career. Obviously, will lead up to that, like you're saying. But looking back on it, I mean, from my introduction to professional wrestling in June of '84, and what many have termed a meteoric rise in wrestling, coming from no experience, no background. Whether it be amateur or professional training of any kind. And then to, fast forward through 85 and Great American Bash, first match against Flair, leading into 86. A trip to Japan, kind of in between there, establishing myself in Japan. It was really quite a memorable time.
We're talking with Nikita Koloff. Nikita, just go back very briefly. Tell us about how you actually got into pro wrestling. When did all that start for you?
So the short version, the Reader's Digest version of that is, I'm training for pro football tryout, 1984, having graduated from Moorhead State University up in northern Minnesota. As close as I could get to Siberia without actually being from Russia. For real. Like I just recently, I was able to watch the last game of the season, and they had 6 or 7 inches on the snow. It was kind of blizzard conditions at the kickoff, and it just brought back so many memories. And so my introduction to pro wrestling came through a guy named Road Warrior Animal, who had, if you want to say, recruited me into wrestling. It was kind of turnabout as fair play, because I had recruited him out of high school to play college football with me. He dropped out. Next thing I know, he's on PBS on the Superstation with a mohawk and paint, and and of course the Road Warriors came to be who they are, the legendary team they became. And so he called me with the idea and shared with me the storyline of a nephew for Ivan Koloff. I was not familiar with most of the people in wrestling. Most familiar was Jesse the Body Ventura, because I actually trained in his gym during my college days. So I got to know him and became familiar with professional wrestling, Vern Gagne and the AWA. And so then fast forward to that phone call. I had a 5-minute phone call with Jim Crockett Jr., sight unseen, no cell phones in those days, no selfies, no pictures, just a conversation to be in his office on a certain day, making sure he understood I had no background or training. I took a step of faith and took a risk, drove to a city I'd never been, showed up the day he said to be there, introduces me to Ivan Koloff, Don Kernodle, the NWA World Tag Team Champion. Nikita Koloff is born in the hallways that day.
Wow. And then of course you became, a legendary figure. You had some incredible feuds with a whole host of folks, but more specifically to 86 Magnum TA. And we eventually have a little controversy. You get to throw a sickle around a Crockett or two, and then there's the whole blow up with the NWA, and we do the best of 7. How do you remember that creative coming together for the Great American Bash Tour, the best of 7?
Kudos to Dusty. In my view, he was one of the most creative minds in wrestling. First, that's just a personal view of mine. And fortunate to have the opportunity to work both against him and then ultimately with him as the superpowers. And, looking back, again, just a short remembrance of the early days of my career, for your audience to understand, breaking it the way I did, I had what you might call on-the-job training, and Ivan and Don and I would get to town a couple, 3 hours early for a 3 months, and they'd bump us up all over the ring, teach me the mechanics, and we talked about the psychology every night on the drive home, old school psychology. And then I was fortunate to be in the ring with guys like Dory Funk Jr., Blackjack Mulligan, of course, Dusty, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and Rufus R. Freight Train Jones. Many legendary guys in the Mid-Atlantic that helped catapult my career. And then, fast forward to Magnum TA coming into the territory, and Dusty's creative genius of coming up with the idea of the best of 7 series, which is the most talked about part of my career with the fans. Typically, that's what they really remember the most, the intensity of those matches. And I thought our styles matched up really, really well as far as, some call it working stiff. He and I preferred to call it working snug, and many, many fans have said, like, for real, like, I'm out doing these, legend signings, Comic-Cons, etc. And they're like, they would say, man, we walked out of the, that night and go, I don't know about any of those other matches, but that match against Magnum was real, And the other memory that comes to mind, guys, is the fans are like, and to this day I hear it, man, you scared the bejeebies out of me as a kid, man. You were so intimidating. So I hear that a lot as well. And so certainly 1985, the best of 7, leading into the best of 7, and 86 with the arch nemesis Mega TA. There's a little snippet for your audience. They're like, can you do the voice? And I'm like, oh, man, come on. So anyway, just so memorable. That best of 7, and of course, the Magnum, the chemistry, bringing such a flood of memories.
I get it. It's a wrestling podcast, but he's saving us money on our mortgage. You really trust this process? The reviews don't lie. 5-star review after 5-star review. We make it fast, we make it easy, and it's no cost or obligation. Give us a shot to earn your business. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did, especially if you like keeping more of your own money. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket, so what are you waiting for? Hurry to savewithconrad.com.
Yeah, you said working Stug. You and Magnum were both very stiff, so you deserved each other. So
come on,
you did. Hey, so listen, Magnum has in October has the horrible accident, and you were not anticipating that. How did that all come about? Where they turned this around, they had to do something quickly. Dusty turns you babyface. You had that moment in Charlotte that to me is still one of the great moments in Jim Crockett Promotions when you helped Dusty in the cage. And then all of a sudden you are headlining, main eventing the Starrcade. How did that all come about?
Well, it's an illustration of my entire career and, in a sense, my life as a whole. And I do want to publicly say, I guess you can ultimately now really confirm this and say I'm very humbled at what I've heard in other interviews, and in that you can say yay or nay, Tony, but from what I understand, as you've been asked, what was the biggest pop ever, and you've had a legendary announcing career and witnessed many, many amazing matches, but I guess that that night of the turn in Charlotte ranks up there, and I guess in your book, as one of the greatest pops in wrestling. Is that an accurate statement?
Yep, it is. We've talked about it here on this podcast. I was standing beside Jimmy Crockett, and Jimmy Crockett said, "Not many pops made my eyes water, but that one did, and it'll go down as one of the biggest ever. It really will." It was completely unexpected because you were a super heel, and so from that moment on, from that gigantic pop, you were a babyface. You were with Dusty, and now you're going to headline Starrcade 86. Talk about that whole discussion with Dusty. You know, you and Dusty had that interview where you were on one side and he was on the other, and you talked about being not agreeing with each other's politics, but agreeing that, you know, with pro wrestling, and talking about Magnum. Talk about how all that happened.
Yeah, in fact, I can kind of shout out to Bill Apter for making that happen and helping to really make my career, with all the magazine covers and articles, etc. And that was an integral part. That interview was an integral part of that. Just a little quick backstory on that, because I was in Japan on a tour, and news then wasn't like news is now, and so. When I got back, I vividly remember my first time back was in Philadelphia at the Civic Center, and Dusty and Jimmy bringing me up into a room and sharing with me that Magnum had had the rack. And of course, wrestling's a work, right? I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, for real. I'm like, yeah, sure. This is the work, right? And it honestly took them a few minutes to convince me. They're like, no, this is a shoot. This is on the level. This is like for real. Like, he's to be a quadriplegic the rest of his life.
Right.
So there was a moment of shock there. I'm like, wow, okay, all right. And so once that settled in, then they said, well, we have an idea. And I'm like, okay. And they said, obviously this leaves a void. There's a few weeks from now, there's a big cage match in Dusty and supposed to be Magnum, and so we have an idea of turning you babyface, kind of a surprise mystery partner type thing. And is that something you'd be interested in doing? You don't have to give us an answer tonight. Take some time to think about it if you'd like. And honestly, I thought to myself, between Dusty and Jimmy, all their years combined in wrestling, I'm like. And that, guys, at this point, I'm still, 2.5 years into my career?
Right.
So, I'm still learning. And I'm like, they got way more experience than me. If they think it would work, man, why not? Why not give it a shot? And we'll roll the dice and see what happens. And of course, the old cliche, the rest is history. But and we agreed, I don't know how. My understanding was we would be the only three that actually knew it, even leading up into that night, and even getting to the arena late and making sure nobody saw me come in and that whole deal. And I think it was one of the best kept secrets ever in wrestling, in addition to one of the best pops in wrestling, as many you, Tony, and many others have said. And it's pretty powerful. I didn't know about water, Jimmy's eyes watering, but that's pretty amazing.
It was the biggest story in Jim Crockett Promotions, of course, when Magnum went down. And then when you sort of step in his place and you're going to be taking on the Nature Boy for the world title, that's got to be almost like a pinch me moment, right? The Starrcade show is the granddaddy of them all. And as you said, you're relatively new in your wrestling career, and now you're in the main event for the world title against Ric Flair. Were you nervous, anxious, excited, all that? None of that?
All the above. I mean, and just a quick backstory too from it, because if you go back to 1985 as a heel, stepping into the ring for the very first time ever against the Nature Boy, there's several defining moments of my career, I believe, and or pinnacle moments. Certainly 1985, the best, because I was only, again, at that point, now I'm only 13 months into the business. Now, fast forward to Starrcade 86. Now the tables have turned, and now I'm the good guy. He's the bad guy, so to speak. And and it is the granddaddy of it all. The Starrcade. So what a position to be in. What an incredibly humbling opportunity, and it's just all the above. Yeah, nervous, excited. Atlanta was always a great place, a great venue. The Omni in Atlanta was legendary at the time, right? So I can remember, I don't tell this story often, but I can remember in early 1984, I lived with a Road Warrior Animal, Jake Snake Roberts, while I was training for a pro football tryout. And I remember sitting in the VIP section of the Omni watching those guys wrestle. Early January 1984. And now fast forward, about 2.5, almost 3 years later, now I'm not sitting in the VIP section. I'm in the ring, in the main event. And never in a million years might I have entertained the idea of sitting in that VIP section that I actually be in that ring as a main event, wrestling one of the greatest of all time, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Yeah, that is a pinch me moment. That's a great way to put it. Yes, sir.
We're talking with Nikita Koloff here on What Happened When as we go back and look at Starrcade 86. So it's you and Flair. What do you actually remember about that match? Now, when people ask me, do you remember actual matches? I normally don't. I don't, but you obviously worked many matches. What do you remember specifically about the match that night versus Flair?
Well, and it is a great question and an accurate statement in that, like I try to put it in perspective for people. I was able to pinpoint in 1986 having 454 matches.
Wow.
In 1986. So when people ask me, like, this match, that match, I mean, do I remember the Great American Bash? There's certain matches that you kind of jump out in your head, but certainly 85 was against Flair. The best of 7, I don't remember all specifically all the details of all 7 matches. Obviously, a highlight, the 7th and final match in Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte was a pivotal city for me because, many big things. The best of 7 against Magnum, the turn in the cage with Dusty becoming, one of the superpowers. And that interview, let me just say this real quick, too. That interview, I do remember slightly about that where, the words that came out of Dusty's mouth, we don't agree on everything, but we got a common bond, baby, if you will. Yeah, we got Nikita and I, we got a common bond, I remember him saying that about that interview. And then fast forward, even the war games, in the very first one, they're in the Omni in Atlanta, right? The war games and the electricity and the anticipation and not knowing for sure what's going to happen because nothing like that had ever been done before. And then Night of the Skywalkers, right? So I guess I don't remember a whole lot of specifics other than in and out of the ring. I remember, I can remember utilizing I think both of us utilized the scaffold that night in terms of as a weapon outside of the ring. And more than anything, wrestling Rick, who I deem one of the consummate professionals of wrestling, I've always joked and said he could make a broomstick look good because he made Nikita Koloff look good. But he had that uncanny ability to take anybody, regardless of their skill level, and raise the ship on the water, if you will, or bring them about. And he did that for me my whole career and all the many dozens and dozens and dozens of matches I had against him, hour-long Broadways and everything else. And so that's probably more than anything I remember is the scaffolds and the in and out of the ring and just the fact that on any given night, including Starrcade, I knew if I just followed his lead, I felt confident we would have a match that the fans would appreciate.
Well, Nikita, hearing you do Dusty's voice is something we never thought we would ever hear in our life. Is that great? Nikita Koloff doing a Dusty Rhodes voice.
Come on, hey, son of a plumber from Austin, Texas, baby. Yeah, the superpowers. Yeah, all the time I'm Nikita Koloff and the dream. Yeah. Come on.
All right. So, Nikita, that's tremendous.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that we're able to catch up with you, and we greatly appreciate your time. But before we let you go, I do want to ask, when you look back in your entire career, is 1986 the one that sticks out the most?
Yeah, I'd say it was kind of a pinnacle. Again, I not necessarily a peak, but a pinnacle. And I'd say this, guys. As you guys are well aware of, and all the fans and many conversations and interviews and comments and about my career, some have coined me the Barry Sanders of pro wrestling. The football fan out there will understand that, right? Appreciate that. In fact, I was just recently in Detroit. But many have said, as if you want to say brief, or my career being shorter than many other guys, for whatever reason, and I honestly I would have to say, I give the good Lord credit for saying this, that as short as it was, it's left an indelible impression and a lasting impact on the wrestling fan. And I'm grateful for the fans, and still to this day, the fact that they would even want my autograph, I say that very, very sincerely, is just still blows my mind. But apparently, the character that I portrayed, the name, I can't tell you how many people have said, I don't know anything about wrestling, didn't follow it, but I've heard that name before. So, even choosing that name, which Jimmy gave me that option, and to this day, I don't remember he gave me two options: Nikita Koloff, and some other name. And I just, in my mind, thought Nikita. And I remember from my history days, Nikita Khrushchev, and I thought, yeah, it's got a ring to it. And so I feel very fortunate, grateful I was able to have the career, and no regrets walking away from it when I did, not knowing what the future was going to hold for me, but certainly grateful for even the last 28 years traveling now to 30 different countries and all 50 states, and ministry in 1,200 plus churches. And so I'm just saying, be able to take the wrestling platform in many cases and draw a crowd and be able to share some of my story outside the ring, and just thankful to be really with you guys today and be able to share a little bit of my story with you guys today. I just have nothing but great memories with you. Conrad, I don't know that we've actually met together yet, face to face, but we will one day.
Yes, sir.
And just grateful, guys.
Well, Nikita, we're grateful for you, buddy. As always, you left quite a mark on pro wrestling, one that can never be erased. Give us a Shatoata before you leave, please.
Yeah. My comrade, don't leave. Nikita Koloff there. You're one of the best of the best of the best when it comes to announcing pro wrestling. I'm grateful and thankful to have the opportunity to know you, Shatoata.
Well, Tony, we can't let him go without asking. Nikita, we've been trying to figure it out all year. What the heck does Shatoata mean?
I get asked that all the time. And my response to that is, it shall remain a mystery. Because then they'll keep asking me, what does that mean? And hey, it's funny to watch people like try to spell it out, like they follow me on social media, and I say if people do want to follow me, if you don't mind, just Koloff.net. One stop. Koloff.net. I just pulled in the parking lot to do film, record some shows for my own podcast, but Koloff.net. I'll send you guys the show notes. If you put it in the show notes, that'd be awesome. So.
Thank you for all the time, man. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to catch up with you. Catch Nikita at Koloff.net, and we'll be sure to tag all of his social media for you as well. But man, it's been so great reliving 1986, and we can't thank you enough for all the memories and your time today.
Thank you, guys, and keep up the great work yourselves. And Tony, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Ladies Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.